today's episode of the Me Kevin Report, a potential cause for the Palisades fire. We'll go into detail around what could have potentially caused it and how could we prevent it in the future. Surprise, surprise, there are answers. Elon Musk's big move on the fires and Cybertrucks, we'll talk about that. Gavin Newsom's classic finger pointing. Donald Trump being called Trump the Deporter, as a picture of him graces the front cover of The Economist in place of the Statue of Liberty. Talk about Donald Trump's executive orders, catalyst for the week, and of course the big catalyst coming up next Monday. If you don't have that on your calendar, you are making a little oopsies. Let's just say we'll be live streaming that one. Federal Reserve macro speak, the Wall Street Journal and Economist pushing a particular type of investment, as well as Morgan Stanley's outlook for a specific sector of artificial intelligence that a lot of folks might not yet be paying attention to. And this is where we get started with the Meet Kevin Report. News that makes you money. Keep in mind, chapter markers are listed below. On macro, first, let's start with Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley says that a lot of artificial intelligence sectors might potentially be fully priced, while, quite frankly, they've performed very well over the last couple of years, or artificial intelligence has really taken off. But something that might not yet be fully priced are high pricing power agent-style stocks. Now, this is very interesting. See, they say there are two types of agent AI types of stocks. There are those sort of fundamental to their core thesis, like a Salesforce, a Microsoft, a ServiceNow, Freshworks, or even RELX. These, they say, are some of your classic AI agent vendors. But there are others, they say, have been left behind, and they find a correlation between higher pricing power artificial intelligence stocks and higher market returns compared to lower pricing power. And this is where they basically argue, hey, maybe you should look for the ones that are not core to the thesis, as those have already been fully priced in, and consider some of these other AI stocks, or even companies, whether they're investments into companies like MongoDB, Confluent, UiPath, Appian, or investments into companies like GitLab, HubSpot, SAP, Workday, Atlassian, and some of these other companies. This is an interesting approach by Morgan Stanley where they really argue, hey, look for those companies that are going to bring software to the next level in 2025. A lot of folks say that companies today, very few companies today are actually using and deploying artificial intelligence. But companies that could really win, and some other example companies of those that could win, would be companies with that high pricing power, people who keep coming back for those brands, also those with proprietary data, and specifically platforms that could converge these under a walled garden where you could use that pricing power, use AI, and then create an agent experience. Some example companies, they argue, Meta, Axon, the maker of the tasers and body cameras. You've got Experian on here, one of the credit bureaus, Spotify, L'Oreal, Thermo Fisher, and some other companies. Very interesting. Now, again, they argue, yes, a lot of companies have already seen artificial intelligence priced in, but you want to look for those that still have high pricing power, but that agent movement hasn't been priced in yet. The agent movement, just to think about it, is more than just a chatbot experience. It's supposed to be predictive. So establishing a relationship almost, that sounds weird because it's AI establishing that relationship. Establishing that relationship with a customer where artificial intelligence predictively contacts customers. Hey, maybe service is due. Hey, it's time to renew your warranty program. Hey, it's, have you... I'm just making this one up. Have you changed the batteries on the product you bought from us? By the way, did you see the latest product we introduced? It's sort of a way of introducing value while following up with, hey, by the way, did you know we have this new product? Kind of interesting. So that's Morgan Stanley's take for you. Not a bad opinion. Wanted to share it with you. At the same time, you've got the Economist and Wall Street Journal both talking about bond yields. Quite frankly, many people have been talking about bond yields because they've been going straight up. Bond values have been collapsing. And a lot of folks say this is really just a definition of uncertainty. I mean, think about some of the uncertainty. Yes, Trump tax cuts could spur growth, Social Security tax cuts on tips, the 2017 tax cut extension, slashing regulation, like all of these things could spur growth, which is good. But growth can sometimes be associated, though not always, because it's sort of bottlenecked by pricing power, with inflation, right? More growth doesn't necessarily mean you have inflation. But when you have no growth, you're definitely not going to have inflation. Almost never. You tend to have more deflation, right? So you're playing this sort of balancing game where, there's a higher risk of inflation with a high growth environment. So these cuts could create this, along with fears around tariffs or the deportation of workers and risks from government spending, or potentially the risks of countermeasures. And look, Justin Trudeau says, if Trump tariffs us, we're going to tariff him back. Okay, well, a lot of people think Trudeau doesn't really have a leg to stand on, given that he's, in the process of resigning from the Liberal Party. Liberal Party is losing a lot of power anyway, so what does it matter? But the point of all of this is that uncertainty is being priced into bonds to almost a maximum level per The Economist and the Wall Street Journal. And the takeaway here is that the Wall Street Journal says quite interestingly that because nobody is pricing in a hard landing, and right now everybody is pricing in growth and uncertainty, you don't have a downside protection. And the Wall Street Journal says, quote, this is in an article today, were growth and corporate earnings to truly suffer, which may not happen, though central banks would need to change course and go into stimulus mode, guess which asset class would gain in that scenario? Bonds. So in other words, there are a lot of these institutions, I'm seeing a lot of these, whether or not they actually invest in bonds, there are a lot of institutions right now that are like, bonds are starting to get a little juicy here because nobody's pricing in the downside. Fair, but then again, after the 2 jobs reports we got, is there downside? Maybe this time is different. Quite frankly, the last 2 jobs reports were pretty good. The last one especially was kind of like, damn, okay. I don't know. Will back to work at the government from Donald Trump's executive orders or back to work at JP Morgan lead to layoffs or people quitting? Who knows? But what I do know is that there are catalysts like you getting life insurance in as little as 5 minutes by going to metkevin.com/life. Somebody, that's an affiliate, by the way. Somebody actually left a comment. They're like, hey, Kevin, you fly a plane now. You need to check your policy to see if being a pilot is covered in your life insurance policy. I didn't know. It was a fair question. They were right that I should look. And so I looked. And as long as within the next 2 years after your application, you don't have any intentions of being a pilot, you're good. And I didn't. I honestly never thought I was going to be a pilot until, quite frankly, like 3 months ago. And I have had this policy now since 2019. It's good for another 9 or 10 years, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, thanks to that life insurance company. So if you want to see that same company, hopefully I never have to use the policy anyway. Knock on wood. Go to metkevin.com/life. Catalyst to pay attention to. Tuesday, we get U.S. producer price inflation. And on Wednesday and on Tuesday, we get New York Fed President Williams speaking. Let me look at some of the numbers really quickly here. So PPI, we're looking for month-over-month 0.4. Core, we're looking at 0.3. So honestly, that's up from the 0.2 and 0.1 we had previously on some of the core numbers there. So it seems like we should be able to come in lower than those numbers, which would be good for bonds. But we'll see, The numbers come in crazy all the time. Average estimates right now, 0.25, rounded and medium estimates at 0.3. Definitely a skew to the higher side on some of those numbers. So expecting some of those PPI numbers to move up for the month of December. On Wednesday, we get U.S. CPI. Chicago Fed President Goolsbee will be speaking. Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari will be speaking. If I look at the CPI numbers for Wednesday, we're looking for a headline of 0.3, matched of last, and core at 0.2, down from 0.3 last. Year over year, 2.9. Year over year core matching, stable from last month's year over year at 3.3. So we'll see what happens with those numbers this week. On a Thursday, we'll start actually getting some more earnings coming through. Taiwan Semiconductors, that'll be a big one. Although they've already pre-published some of their numbers, which were very good, and this led AI stocks to sort of run a bit over the last couple of weeks. Bank of America earnings, Morgan Stanley earnings coming out from the banking sector this week. I doubt we'll really see anything highly useful or any signs of distress. Consumers keep spending money. People aren't really getting laid off. Remember, layoffs precede people spending less money. So when you hear about these consumer numbers, they really don't matter until layoffs happen. But as long as people keep spending and the economy keeps booming, why would layoffs happen? Maybe they won't. Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan says tariffs, oh yeah, we already talked about that, could be used as a tool if managed correctly. Well, I don't know if I mentioned that. But anyway, so this gives you a little bit of some economic noting from what we've seen over just the weekend days and some things that people are paying attention to right now. You know, futures move all over the place, so I always like to take these with a grain of salt. We did see Bitcoin drop in under 94,000, but right now it's back at 94.5, so it's kind of balancing out in this region. NASDAQ futures are bobbing around zero, so are S&P futures, and Dow futures are slightly positive. Bond futures are slightly up, which means yields are slightly down. And if you look at the HSI index for the Asian markets, let me see here. Asia Pacific markets opened lower so far. Australia's traded a little bit lower. HSI futures, because it's not open yet, slightly lower. Some of that might just be lagging us in the jobs report that we had on Friday, not necessarily predictive for our market tomorrow. Okay, so let's talk about California fires, and then let's get into some more politics on like Trump and executive orders and some of the other information we want to cover. So first, California fires, 16 dead now, 16 missing. Numbers are still expected to climb. Palisades fire, 11% contained. Eaton, 27% contained. Yeah, okay. So something that we really want to pay attention to here, though, is the potential cause of these fires and what's going on with Elon Musk. Because a lot of people are looking at Elon Musk and saying, okay, what is he up to and why is he getting involved in these fires? So again, 16 dead, 16 still missing. I just want to make a quick little note of that. So what we have to look at here with 12,000 structures gone, 23,700 acres destroyed due to the Palisades fire, 14,000 plus acres destroyed due to Eaton. What we want to understand is what actually led to the original spawning of these fires. And this is where we really start to see something fascinating. So the Washington Post, I know a lot of people don't like him, the Jeff Bezos page, they've been analyzing satellite footage. And here's something they noticed. See this on the map here? On January 6th, the red here is lively vegetation, or, you know, potentially dead vegetation that's just sort of there and dried out, but it's deemed to be vegetation. And notice here, this road on the right, this sort of black scar right here, you don't actually have that black scar on the left. And so what happened here was on New Year's Eve, somewhere around midnight, there was a fire here. And that's because people who hiked up this trail set off fireworks on this trail around very dry brush. And so what a surprise, caught fire. Now, winds were relatively calm on New Year's Eve, and so firefighters responded and put out the fire. But what's fascinating is these burn scars are very important to pay attention to. Burn scars can actually rekindle fires. And this is where we really want to pay attention to where did the Palisades fire start? Well, according to satellite imagery showing smoke originating from this burn scar area 20 minutes after the Palisades fire started, we saw that the smoke was beginning in the same area as this burn scar. Now, this doesn't mean that there wasn't arson involved or, you know, something malicious, but it does suggest at least the possibility that heavy winds rekindled this burn scar. Now, you might be saying, what? How is that possible? It's been days since that burn scar. Yes, but the rekindling, or a process known as reignition of a fire, can actually occur as late as 10 days after a fire burns an area. Professor from Syracuse University noted in 2018 that fires tend to smolder beneath what looks like a burn scar and something that looks like it's an out fire. Fire tends to still be smoldering down there at very, very calm levels to where nobody actually knows that these scars are still on fire. And what happens when you get a lot of wind coming across the top of the burn scar, it's almost as if you're kindling a fireplace. So imagine you create sort of a little teepee around fire, and you're trying to blow that fire, trying to give that fire oxygen to bring it back to life. So then you take a smoldering fire, give it fresh oxygen thanks to wind, and what happens? It reignites and embers come out, and boom, all of a sudden you have a spread of fire again. I want you to see the area of the Palisades fire that took fire. Look at how dry this area looks. This is literally a tinderbox of unmanaged land. This could have easily been control burned, especially since if this is indeed where the scar is of the Palisades fire, a controlled burn could have taken place around that scar to mitigate the potential of that scar reigniting. Firefighters know about these sort of reignition problems, but no management was conducted around that scar. This creates a really big potential issue because now you have a scar which is known for reigniting with a tinderbox around it and nobody responding to it. Well, what's worse is, according to investigations from WAPO, when you actually look at firefighter transcripts from radio calls, this fire was reported 25 minutes before trucks were even close to responding. And by the time they responded, the fire had already grown to multiple acres. They were not able to respond to the precise source. That's because fire resources were spread so thin, responding to other cases around the city. Some fire trucks didn't actually start rolling on this until it became obvious that homes were going to get threatened, and then they showed up late and oopsie doopsie, the Palisades fire explodes. In fact, on radio calls, you hear firefighters talking about heavy fuel in the area. As I just showed you in the picture, that would be an example of heavy fuel. And boom, you have the Palisades fire that has now potentially killed as many as 32, maybe even more people, and may end up going down as the most expensive fire in history. Now, Gavin Newsom says, well, I mean, we had a hurricane and a fire in one. What could we have done? And this is what a lot of people say. It's like, well, I mean, what are you supposed to do? You know, come on, man. Well, I mean, to start, it might be a good idea to actually have firefighters around a frickin' burn scar from 5 frackin' days earlier when you know they could stay hot for 10 days. Or maybe use infrared technology to observe where you have hot spots or hotter temperatures in areas where you have a higher likelihood of observing a reignition of a sort of fire or an initial ignition of a fire. Now understand, winds grew substantially on the morning of the Palisades fire, which started around 10 a.m. And that does make it very difficult to use aerial vehicles, whether it's helicopters, planes, or drones, because it's just unsafe to do so. You just get whipped right out of the sky. Understandable, but firefighters were nowhere around this fire scar. Firefighters took very long to respond because of a lack of resources and budget cuts from both Newsom and, quite frankly, the CAL FIRE budget and the local mayor's budget, which is very, very bad. You didn't have water tanks available. The Santa Ynez Reservoir was bone dry. 20% of fire hydrants didn't function during the fire, which is ridiculous. These are all things that we could have managed. Faster response times, water tanks on standby, more firefighters pre-deployed, faster response times, burning areas around tinder boxes to control burn them in lower wind environments. These are ways that we could minimize the potential spread of these wildfires that then just tinderbox up and destroy neighborhoods and lives and, well, even cities. It's terrible. Now, the California State Marshal actually says we're working on land management, and he says, quote, that's what we need to do to prevent this. So he literally admits that, yeah, we need to do more of this. Why do they need to do more of this? Well, because the fire season is potentially 75 days longer than it used to be in the 1970s. It's almost like a whole year-long issue right now, and you need more money. Now, of course, Gavin Newsom says a commission and an investigative committee should be established to investigate what happened, and Adam Schiff, you know, as Trump says, shifty shift, is urging the creation of an independent commission. Well, personally, I'm kind of tired of California spending money on commissions and investigations. You get to work and do something. Spend the money of that on actually solving the problem. It seems like every time there's a problem, somebody wants to create another damn bureau or commission to investigate and think and to talk about what happened. Get to work. Otherwise, nothing ever ends up getting done. Now, Elon Musk is responding by saying that they are now going to take some deliveries for Cybertrucks, and they're going to delay some customers' receipts of their Cybertrucks, and instead they're going to use these Cybertrucks to provide Starlink service in the LA area. Now, some people say this is a great gesture, that Elon Musk is a hero or a god. Others say this is just an excellent marketing ploy for both Tesla and Starlink. Cybertrucks are obviously very noticeable, and then, hey, look, good internet service over there. It's kind of cool. It's like a beacon, right? And others say that the Cybertrucks are not actually really going away from people who are getting their deliveries delayed. Maybe one person got their delivery delayed, so Elon Musk could say that Cybertruck deliveries are getting delayed. But the reality is, some people say this, that Cybertrucks are just unsold inventory. And so Elon's like, oh, what am I going to do with all these unsold Cybertrucks? We're deploying Cybertrucks around Los Angeles with Starlink on them, yes. Yes, we have no leftover Cybertrucks because we just gave them away. These Cybertrucks are obviously going to be difficult to sell in the future due to likely smoke and ash damage that these vehicles are going to have. So I'm not saying it's a nice gesture, and I'm not saying I agree with any of these sentiments. I'm just telling you this is what I'm hearing out there. Me personally, I think it's a great thing, and I personally kind of want to go down to LA and see what they look like and see if people are using them and ask people. I don't know. If you want me to go down to LA and do a video, tell me what you want me to see. It's not that far of a drive away. I'll bring a mask and, like a good one and one that'll actually work. And we'll go check it out. Leave me a comment down below. Problem now is winds are actually picking up again. I'm actually really frustrated by this because I was hoping that winds would be gone. I just flew back from Henderson and it was extremely turbulent. Well, at least for what I was flying. And a lot of PIREPs as well for turbulence, pilot reports. But we were hoping that these winds would die down. And right now it doesn't look like the winds are going to die down until Thursday, which is really unideal. As always, and it's not sponsored, I just say it. I like to use the Windy app to kind of see what's going on. And you can see the winds actually get worse over here by 12 p.m. Monday. These are your Santa Ana winds. They're usually an easterly flow, but they kind of come from the north and the east. And you can see on Tuesday, you've still got these winds going. On Wednesday, 10 a.m., you've still got those winds going. That's going to be sort of your green line right there through sort of Santa Clarita, Ventura County, and that northern part of Los Angeles County. It's really not until Thursday that the winds actually calm and die down. This is at the surface, mind you. If I go up to, let's do like a hillside or something like that. Let's go up to like 2,000 feet. Calm on Thursday, but if I go to 11 on Wednesday, look at 2,000 feet. Fortunately, Oxnard doesn't have hills over there. That's like Point Magoo over there. But here, like the Calabasas area, you're going to have these 14-knot winds. Honestly, Camarillo is not looking good at 27 knot winds. That's not great. On Tuesday, you've got these winds around Simi Valley, TO. Wow, look at Camarillo, 34, 35 knot winds. This is pretty severe. These are some pretty strong winds. Strong winds on Monday as well as over here, Irvine, Anaheim area, Santa Clarita. The winds off the coast of Oxnard. Extreme over there at the 38 knots. That's at 2,000 feet up. But anyway, it's not great because this could actually reignite even more fires, which isn't fantastic at all. It's just quite literally bad. Anyway, heart goes out to everybody affected, and hopefully these winds can die down so we can actually fight these fires and get over this. Anyway, Karen Bass tells us that they're working on rebuilding. A lot of people are just working on signing the recall for Karen Bass. All right, then The Economist is putting Donald Trump in place of the Statue of Liberty. Remember, the Statue of Liberty was sort of a beacon for immigration. People say legal immigration. And now The Economist is putting him on the front page in place of the Statue of Liberty. And they're calling him Donald the Deporter. Could a man who makes ugly promises of mass expulsion actually fix America's immigration system? Now, keep in mind, The Economist absolutely despises him. They argue that, during Trump's first term, he deported fewer immigrants than during Obama's term. And they say during Obama's term, you ended up having home building prices go up because people like drywallers, bricklayers, plasterers were being deported. And so there's a chance that Trump's aggressive deportations could challenge the economy. There are also, there's a political piece running on this where people argue that Trump's threat to deploy the army rather than the National Guard to raid sanctuary cities, deport migrants, or suppress protests could end up creating deadly Civil War-like disasters. A lot of this seems very hyperbolic, but it's just some of the stuff that's out there. At the same time, you've got U.S. Representative Buddy Carter introducing a bill to replace the Internal Revenue Service and the tax code with a fair tax. The fair tax is really an argument for a flat tax. So basically, everybody just pays, say 20% every time you go buy something. You go buy an iPhone for $200. Okay, what's that going to cost you? I'm sorry, an iPhone for $1,000. What's it going to cost you in tax? $200, right? Maybe as opposed to the normal like 6 or 7% a local environment charges you, local municipality or whatever. That's just an example of a fair tax. Some people say that's fair because the tax is consumption instead of income. Other people say that disproportionately affects poorer people and that's not fair. Okay, so then what else do we have? There's talk about Donald Trump, quote, hitting the ground running with a bevy of executive orders as soon as he's inaugurated. And this is where we have to talk about the catalyst of next Monday. Donald Trump takes office. A lot of people don't even realize how soon this inauguration is to now. It's literally next Monday, not tomorrow, but next Monday. So 8 days from now, Donald Trump takes office. Some of the executive orders that he is expected to sign include ending Biden restrictions on energy production, signing multiple border immigration executive orders, a potential national emergency on immigration, canceling a natural gas export ban, ending an EV mandate, hiring freeze on the government potentially, a pay raise freeze on the government potentially ending tax credits via executive orders. Some of these things will have to probably be done in bills, but anyway, officially form DOGE, the Department of Governmental Efficiency, with Elon Musk and Vivek, ending vaccine mandates, finishing the U.S.-Mexico border wall, reinstating Remain in Mexico, gender policies in schools, sort of like, I shouldn't say like instituting, okay, let's just clarify this. Probably ending gender identity things like, you can identify as whomever you want and use whatever bathroom you want, right? That's the assumption of what'll end up happening. So with that, let's get into our dad joke of the day, and then let's get into daily wealth. Hopefully you like these. I'll give you also just sort of a quick note on Kevin. I'm super happy to be back here with the kiddos. Really big fan of being here, home with the family. It really just bugs me to go travel and stay in a hotel. Like I personally have to say, I just love this, right? This is, here's Ella, and there's Jack and Claire. They're super happy. Look at the other ones. They're the twins, Summer and Ella, and Jay's really happy. I'm taking a picture. Summer and Violet, sorry. Jay's really happy, taking a picture over there. Max is feeling a little under the weather right now, so not great. It seems like everybody at the beginning of the year kind of gets hit with a cold, which sort of sucks. Shout out to Mr. Softies as well. Nice little family shot there of us having some ice cream as I came back. Just got back from Henderson. And grateful to be back in the office. Somebody inspired me, by the way. Well, inspired or made me feel bad enough. Somebody inspired me to try to upgrade my videos in studio to 4K. So as soon as I'm done uploading this video, that's what I'm going to be working on, which I think that'll be quite a project. I've got probably about 20 Amazon boxes to unpackage over here and other shipments. So that's what I'm going to be working on. So you'll see some changes over the next few days, including the potential to even live stream like that, which will be pretty cool. All right, so let's get into some potential dad jokes. Let's start with this one. Actually, we're just going to do this one, and then we'll get into a daily wealth one. Did you hear about the toilets that were stolen at the police station? Yeah, the cops had nothing to go on. Okay, dad joke out of the way. Let's do a daily wealth. Okay, so today, what I'd like to talk about is communication. Now, this sounds really, really boring, but I find it so critical, especially with myself, with coworkers. I'm generally a very optimistic person, and when I talk to people, I feel like we can sort of inspire enthusiasm and motivation, and we're excited about tomorrow. I know that not everybody agrees with that POV. People leave me comments like, you should smile less, blah, blah, blah. Whatever. People leave stupid comments all the time. It's like, whatever. I find that if I'm exclusively texting or like chatting coworkers, that optimism doesn't come through. So then it really comes through as like you kind of just talking to people in almost like a commanding way. This could be true with your spouse or coworkers or friends or family or people you're working for or who are working for you or whatever. And so there's a risk. And I've always been a huge proponent of like text more, don't get me on the phone, don't get me on the phone. And I'm not the biggest fan of being on the phone, I will say. But what I am a big fan of is meeting people in person. Hey, let's get a coffee. Hey, let's go sit down and meet, for a meal. That's always valuable. Meeting people in person, very, very valuable. Getting in office with your coworkers, meeting people in person to co-inspire, so much more valuable than just sending text. Zoom, the opposite. Like nobody wants to be on a Zoom. So it feels like everybody kind of gets on these with a negative attitude of like, I want to get off these. So I do not think that's a replacement. What I do think has been extremely useful for us is being able to get in touch with us quickly. And so there are a few ways that you can do this. One way you could do this is you could use handheld radios if you're close to your team, but not super close. Big fan of these. Some people call them walkie-talkies, but quite frankly, when you get a UAF, what is it? Ultra high frequency, UHF frequency band set up in an area, or you use digital radios for, I guess this is digital too, cellular radios. They're great because you can get in touch with people very rapidly, but these radios are great technology. Like getting in touch with people rapidly and having a conversation and that emotion to your voice, so much better than just an email or a text. Hence why I always like doing these videos. Some people complain that they're a little bit on the too long side, but I think it's honestly the best way to convey either quality information or insight in the proper way. Our lives are not meant to be conveyed in one-line text messages or one-line tweets. Context is lost, emotion is lost, and the wrong impressions are made. So, my take. Anyway, thanks for watching, folks. Cheers, and we'll see you in the next one. By the way, shout out to... can you see it? The airport in the sky. Catalina Island.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.